I really love playing this character, and he is a character. I'm performing when I'm dressed as him. So I feel like someone else in the sense that I'm playing a part, but he is a character I created. I'm not someone different, I'm just myself.
Is it scary when you take the mask off to reveal who you are?
Oh, I can take it off.
Would you mind?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hello, I am Edward Fuzzy Paws. I am a furry, and today I'm going to be answering questions from the Honesty Box. Okay, question number 1. What is a furry? So a furry is literally somebody who is a fan of anthropomorphic animals. That means animals that have human characteristics, otherwise kind of thought of as like cartoon animals. When they join the furry fandom, people often create their own characters off of the back of things that have inspired them. So if they grew up with cartoon animals, they might make up their own characters, and those characters come to represent them online. And you might give it its own name and its own colors, and that will become your Fursona. And that's kind of how being a furry develops. Why did you become a furry? I became a furry because I love cartoons. I love animals in general, and eventually I pursued a career in animation, and it just made sense that my love for cartoons grew and grew and grew, and then I discovered these other people who also love cartoon animals. So I made up my own character, and I made up my own costume, and yeah, that's how I became a furry.
Who is your Fursona? Tell us about it.
My Fursona is this character I'm wearing now, Edward Fuzzy Paws. He is a standard poodle. I created my Fursona because I love dogs. I've always loved dogs. I've grown up with dogs. And I wanted a character that I thought would be a fun personification of, like, I guess my joy. I use him to kind of, like, I don't know, spread a little joy. I take him to charity events, things like that. So that's my Fursona. Do you have trouble connecting with people outside of the furry fandom? I actually don't. I'm very open about all of my hobbies with everyone, and I'm in a lot of hobbies, and I've never had trouble sort of connecting with people about other things, other interests, and telling them about this if they're interested. Honestly, it doesn't come up all that much. My friends and family all know I do this. My work colleagues know I do this. Most of them are just kind of casually interested or not interested at all. So no, yeah, I actually have a lot of friends in different fan groups for all kinds of things, and it's never really been much of an issue.
Is it scary when you take the mask off to reveal who you are?
Oh, I can take it off.
Would you mind?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Ooh, here we go.
Wow, there you are.
There I am. We can sit him here, and he can have a little watch.
And tell us, who are you underneath the mask?
So underneath, my name is Alex. I'm an animator. I live with my fiance and my dog. And I have many, many other hobbies beside this one. I'm a whole other person underneath this character. This is literally just a character I made who I love very much, but I am also a human being. What kind of people become furries? Oh, lots of people. I think that's another thing people misunderstand. Anybody can be a furry, and you'd be surprised how many people are furries. There are thousands and thousands of people in the UK alone who are part of the furry fandom and the furry community. I know scientists, I know doctors, I know lawyers, I know lots of cartoonists, lots of artists, lots of people in IT. That's a really popular one. The community is definitely known for being very open to all kinds of people. It definitely attracts people, I think, that perhaps are a bit shy or are still finding their feet, but that's not necessarily true either. There are lots of very confident, outgoing people in the community. It's a big LGBT community. I think it's just very welcoming because it's such a broad love of something so simple. If we can all share a love for something like animals or cartoons or something, that's quite an easy thing to bond over. So yeah, I think it's a very welcoming community.
What activities do you do at the conventions?
Not many. Oh, the conventions.
Yeah.
So furry conventions usually have panels that are about artwork, about learning to create artwork. You meet a lot of people who are famous in the community, so people who've worked on movies or people who've worked on props. There'll be workshops on how to make costumes. There'll be workshops on how to take care of your costumes. There'll be lots of meetups for people who are new and shy and want to meet friends in the community. There'll be lots of dance competitions. This is the thing, because it is just, we like cartoon animals, that's how long is a piece of string. There are so many events at conventions. And the biggest thing we do is we raise a lot of money for charity. That's a really big thing at conventions. We'll have an animal charity, usually a lesser known charity. and we'll be raising money all through the con, whether that's through selling art or going around with buckets or doing little events, and we'll do our best to send the charity a big check at the end, sort of thing. Ooh, aren't you too old to play dress up? No, I don't think so. I get a lot of joy out of it. And I actually think we shouldn't gatekeep things because you got too old to enjoy it. I don't think you're ever too old to enjoy things. I think most adults understand the merit of dressing up for a party or for Halloween. It's just that, but bigger, you know? And I think most adults actually would really enjoy things more if they let themselves do it without that idea of, I'm too old to enjoy this. You're never too old to enjoy anything. I think you can have a great time, just let yourself enjoy it. Where do you get the costumes? Ooh, so there are fursuit makers all over the world. There's a lot in America, there's a lot in the UK as well. So if you want a furry costume, it's actually a bit of a process. They're very, very popular, they're very in demand. So when you find an artist you like who has a website where they make these costumes, they're all bespoke. So everything will be made to the specifications of somebody's character. So it's not really like you can go in a shop and necessarily just buy one ready-made. And if they can get a slot in that artist's waiting list, because most artists probably only make 4 or 5 a year, they will then, have their suit made.
Are they expensive to get made?
They can be, yes. They're very, very popular. They've certainly exploded in popularity since I've been a furry. When I got my suit, he was about $1,200, and that was a while ago. Nowadays, I would say you're looking at the cheap end for about £2,000 or £3,000. And that would be for what's called a partial. I'm wearing a full suit, so I am head to toe, when my head's on, as a full character, but you can get partials, which is a head, a tail, and just hands. And some of them get way up there. You're looking at 10, maybe even £15,000 for some of the really cool stuff. And when I say cool stuff, it moves, smoke comes out. There's some really cool costumes out there. Do you only date furries, or is it hard to explain it to non-furry partners? I happen to be engaged to a furry, so it was never really an issue. I met them at a furry event 10 years ago. So it's never really been a problem, but you meet people, you fall in love with people who you have similar interests with. I have dated non-furry people. They knew I was a furry, they didn't care. But again, because I was dating people with like-minded interests, they were into art, they were into cartoons. They weren't furries themselves, but they didn't really have a problem with it. They didn't even care. So no, I've always found it wasn't a problem, but I am very glad I'm with a furry now because we can have matching costumes and stuff.
Very cute. What are your matching costumes?
They're reindeer. Well, they're deer, but at Christmas we have them with bells on, a boy and a girl, deer, and we go to charity stuff with Santa and entertain the kids. And that's been a lot of fun. Is it a nightmare when you need the toilet? Yes. You have to take off the whole thing if you want to go to the toilet. You definitely need to make sure you go before you put the costume on. Although, if you're very, very hot, you tend to find you don't really need to go. At conventions, they'll often have rooms called headless rooms, which are where you go to remove your head and there'll be water and snacks supplied, and people can take everything off, have a break in there. And if you want to drink, people tend to have a very long straw they'll put right in the mouth, and to avoid taking the whole costume off if they can. So if you want to go to the toilet, you kind of need to take the costume off completely, and people will avoid that for as long as possible. Okay. What are the biggest misconceptions about furries? I think this actually applies to a lot of hobbies that people take part in. Anything that's considered a bit outside the box, a little bit different to perhaps what the quote-unquote average person would do, whatever that means. And I think when people see people doing the most visual part of the fandom, which is dressing up, there's this perhaps a sense of suspicion or making assumptions about why would an adult do that? Of course, when the fandom is as big as it is, there are inevitably going to be some adults that for them it's a kink or something, but that's true of every community, and it's actually true of every community I've been in, whether that's anime or cosplay or whatever. I think when people realize how versatile it is, you can just see someone dressed up in the street and know it's just because they like cartoon animals. It's as simple as that. Do furries consider themselves animals? No. So this is a bit of a misconception that people take it all very seriously, and when they put a costume on, they really believe they're a wolf. That's not true. There is a sense of humor to this. We're creating characters. We're performing as characters, and the key thing is here, they're
anthropomorphic. They're cartoon animals. You know, they're a cartoon character. So there is a big difference there between thinking that you're actually an animal. I know I'm a human being. When I'm dressed up as him, I'm dressed as a cartoon dog, and that's what I'm dressed as. And that really is all there is to it. Oh, furry costume competition. Judge these fursuits.
And here we go.
Judge them.
They've got A, B, and C.
The orange one, you can't actually see in the picture, but they have digigrade legs. So that means there's a lot of padding on this suit, which will be creating the illusion of hindquarters of an animal. The head of that one is actually a resin head. I know that it is. That's something that's fallen out of favor a little bit because they're very heavy. But resin heads mean the jaw can move. So you could actually talk in that suit. The jaw would go like this, and you could be like, oh, hello. So that, in that sense, is a bit more of an advanced costume. The yellow one is also a full suit, and it's got a bit more of a sort of tunified, grumpy-looking brow, which is always really fun. And then the other one is just someone wearing a head, and they've got bare human arms and a t-shirt on. So we would call that partialing or poodling, funnily enough, which is, you know how like on a poodle, they're shaved and they have a pom-pom? That would be the joke. You've got no hair on you, so you're a poodle, right? Sometimes in the community, people go, oh, you shouldn't poodle, that's not like proper. But it doesn't matter, who cares? Like this person's got a head, it's a really nice head. They're just out and about having fun.
Okay, and now without bias, which do you think is the best suit in your opinion?
Without bias. Well, only because I know the resin head is very heavy. The yellow one is probably my favorite. It's a very fun looking suit. It's got a lot of personality. So that would be my favorite, I think. Do you have furry meetups? Yeah, we do. There are meetups pretty much in every big city or town around the UK. Perhaps people don't realize that, but there are conventions and meetups all the time. There are also conventions and meetups all over the world. Some very big ones. In fact, there's some in America that are enormous, thousands and thousands of people. But also sometimes we just meet up as friends and just do, I guess, quote unquote, normal things like go out for dinner and go to the cinema. And it's kind of just like any other social meet really, but with a lot more, I don't know, maybe just a bit more color and fun, I would think, but that's because I like it, so. Do you feel like someone else when you're in the outfit? Sort of. But I suppose that's a little bit like saying, do you feel like a vampire when you're dressed up at Halloween? Not really, but I'll play the part, you know. I really love playing this character, and he is a character. I'm performing when I'm dressed as him. A lot of the characters as well do not talk. It's very common that they don't speak at all to try and keep the sense of imagination. So I do a lot of performance work with him, just acting and big gestures and stuff, and that's what I've kind of used him for when I've been entertaining children or I've done charity work and stuff. So I feel like someone else in the sense that I'm playing a part. But he is a character, you know, he's a character I created. I'm not someone different, I'm just myself. How much have you spent being a furry? Ooh, that's a good question. Probably want to think about it. The costumes can definitely rack up a bill. Dare I even think about it? I suppose in total, my most expensive costume was about £3,000. So probably spent a few £1,000s over the last 10 years.
And conventions and stuff as well, they're expensive?
They can be. They've definitely gone up in price like everything has. And the conventions can be quite long. Some of them are like a week. And you do end up spending money there on all the cool things they have for sale because they have some amazing talented artists selling keychains and plushies and all the kinds of cool stuff. So you can rack up a big bill, yeah. Have you experienced any abuse or hatred from the non-furry community? I'm very lucky that I haven't, but I do know people it's happened to. Unfortunately, I think that is just something that happens when you do anything remotely considered outside the box. I think people might take umbrage at that, and some people are just not very nice. But I haven't experienced it personally. To anyone who has, I would say I'm really sorry that's happened to you. And to anyone who did that, I would implore them to just get to know people. If you want to know something about the furry community, just ask. There's no need to be rude. Most people are just trying to have a good time, and I think they'd be more than happy to inform you rather than, you know, everybody getting on each other's nerves, I think. Is being a furry a way of managing mental health? For some people, I think it can be. It isn't for me. I consider myself, fortunately, I've never had to struggle with mental health, but I do know people who have, and the furry community has helped them. I think if you do struggle with your mental health, it's important to have a support network, and having friends absolutely would help. Being able to express yourself would certainly help. And there are people in the community, lots of LGBT people in the community, absolutely a support network of friends who understand you, who don't judge you. If you wanted to dress up a certain kind of way, that could absolutely make people feel safe and probably help mental health as well. I really think that's the case. And that's one of the reasons it's an important community, because it does really support people. Are you happier as a furry than as yourself? I don't really know what that means though. Am I happier with this hobby in my life? Yes. But as a furry rather than myself, I am myself. I think there is an idea that people who are furries, it's something like that's their whole identity and they just want to be an animal, and that's really not the case. They're themselves. They're expressing themselves in a way that, you know, in the same way a cosplayer might. They're expressing a part of them, something they love, something that's very intimate to them. So I suppose you could say that people are happier sometimes being able to be themselves. And ironically, I think people can be themselves more sometimes when they're in costume or when they're putting on a persona. I think there is an element of that. It gives confidence to people. I have met people who've been very shy and then they put on a costume and they're the life of the party and they find a really amazing way to express themselves. So I think it can make people happier, but I'm just myself.
Do nuns drink alcohol? They certainly do. The answer to that is yes, and if you'd like to ask me what my tipple is, it's a bottle of Newcastle brown ale.